All Things Watched podcast, where we talk all things movies, television, streaming originals, and everything that you can think of pretty well in the modern entertainment and also from the golden oldies as well. And this podcast is a complimentary podcast to the YouTube channel of the same name, All Things Watched. So if you're interested, head on over to YouTube, check out the channel. If you like it, subscribe. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, then come on over and check out the podcast. And if you like it, then follow along. Now, the podcast is where we do all of our open spoiler conversations. It's just, it's a long form conversation, longer format. And I just felt like the podcast is the best way to have long form conversations, especially spoiler reviews. In this one, we're going to be talking about episode 2 of Secret Invasion from the MCU, the newest chapter of the MCU, and the newest chapter of Phase 5. And this episode was titled Promises. So if you have not seen episode 2 of Secret Invasion, I am going to ruin it for you. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out and then come back. But like I said, this is a spoiler review, so you have been warned. If you have not seen episode 2 of Secret Invasion, I am going to ruin it. So go and check it out and then come back and listen in. Okay, so with that being said, I will say right from the get-go that I absolutely loved this episode. I actually thought this episode was better than the first for many reasons. I mean, one, it shows the cruelty of the Skrulls. It also shows the cruelty of humanity, of the humans, and how far the humans are willing to go. And it also shows, the significance of just how big of a threat the Skrulls really are. Because in this episode, we learn that Talos has actually ended up bringing in 1 million Skrulls into our planet. So the world, or Earth, actually has at least 1 million, if not at this point even more than 1 million Skrulls already on the planet. In the previous episode, we were under the impression that it might have been only 500, but in this one, Talos confirms that it is over 1 million Skrulls. So that, of course, is legitimately a full-blown invasion. And this also confirms a theory that I had from the previous episode, where I actually said in the previous podcast, so if you haven't seen that one, head over there and check it out. But I actually said in that podcast that I do believe that Talos somehow had a hand into this invasion, either whether it was directly or indirectly. Either way, I predicted that Talos was definitely a big part of the Skrulls being here, more than what meets the eye. I don't mean just in the sense that he was here for help, but I meant that in the sense that I did believe that Talos would be recruiting Skrulls, but I don't think he did it with bad intentions. I think he just did it because, he was really just looking after his own. You could also tell that in episode 1 as well, when Nick Fury ended up shooting the Skrull in the defense of Talos. He only killed the Skrull in order to save and defend Talos, but you could tell that Talos was not happy about that. He was very upset and somewhat even angry. I don't think, well, maybe angry is not the right word, but he was a little bit distraught that Nick Fury actually killed that Skrull, and, he had a lot of emotions over that. So that was really when I started to think, maybe Talos did play a big hand into this invasion, and maybe he is, responsible for bringing a lot of these Skrulls into the Earth, even after, the group of Skrulls that came with him. I figured that he would be recruiting and sending people, sending other Skrulls messages. He also talks about an emperor in this one as well, an emperor Skrull. So that'll be interesting to see where it goes. This episode also shows us the first look at the Super Skrull and the type of abilities that the Super Skrull will have, which we'll get into when we get to that scene, because we are going to do a scene-by-scene breakdown. But typically in the comics, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think in the comics, the Super Skrulls were based off of the Fantastic Four and their abilities. So you had Pyro, the Invisible Woman, you had Mr. Fantastic, who had the ability to stretch, and then you had the Thing, who was basically kind of like the Hulk, just super amounts of power and kind of invincible to some degree. But you get what I'm saying. So, but I think in this one, because the MCU has not yet introduced the Fantastic Four, it does seem like they're still going to. The Super Skrulls are going to base their abilities off of characters that are very similar to the Fantastic Four, but maybe not quite identical. And we'll get into that as well with our scene-by-scene breakdown. So let's just go right ahead and jump in. So the episode actually starts with the show being in 1995, and this is where we actually get to see the young version of Nick Fury, and this is where he makes a promise to the Skrulls Now, remember, the first movie of Captain Marvel took place in the 90s. In fact, we actually get some scenes. I'm pretty sure there actually were some clips here that did come from that movie, Captain Marvel. But all in all, I have to say the de-aging technology here with Samuel Jackson, I thought it looked really good. I thought the special effects of him going up are in this. There's one scene where they're in space, and I think it's Talos and his family. It also shows Gaia when she was young, which is why I'm thinking that these might have actually been scenes taken directly from Captain Marvel. I can't quite remember. I've only seen Captain Marvel once, and I can't quite remember exactly which scenes they were there. But I'm pretty sure that the opening of this one was directly from Captain Marvel. But either way, it starts off in 1995, and it shows the Skrulls coming to Earth, and it shows Samuel Jackson basically promising the Skrulls that he's going to help them and whatnot. And we actually get to see that promise where he makes that promise with the folks and whatnot. But 1995, only that whole scene, that whole sequence only lasts I think a minute, not even a minute. And then it comes, because it just shows the Skrulls coming, which we've already seen in Captain Marvel, but then it jumps ahead to 1997. And actually, now that I'm recapping it here, 1997 is actually when when Nick Fury, portrayed by Samuel, gives the speech to the Skrulls and tells them, they can, that he promises to help them find a planet to live on. And he basically tells the Skrulls, you know what, you help me and I'll help you. You uphold your end of the promise, and I will uphold mine. And as we know here now in modern day, of secret invasion in the modern day, we know that is not true. But one thing that this scene did really well with the 1997 scene is that it shows Gravik, and we get to see a little bit about the history of Gravik, and how Gravik was here when Nick Fury gave this speech. So Gravik, of all people, knows that Nick Fury did not uphold his end of the deal, and maybe he would have if it wasn't for Thanos. I feel like he would have absolutely done everything in his power to try to uphold the deal, but given the fact that Thanos came and then Thanos snapped his fingers and Fury went away in the blip, I believe this is why Fury sort of gave up on the Skrulls. The only question that I have to ask and wonder is, where's Captain Marvel? Why didn't Captain Marvel come back and sort of help? But either way, that scene in 1997 is very important for modern day, mainly, like I said, because it shows, Fury, protecting the Skrulls, and like I said, they sort of make that agreement, that covenant. Talos is there, and Talos, is talking to his people, and he's like, "Listen, folks, you can trust Nick Fury because I trust Nick Fury, and he trusts me. Trust works both ways," and so that's really cool. And like I said, that part of the story is very important because it acts as a foundation and as a backstory for Gravik. So it sort of helps you understand a little bit, why is Gravik doing all this today? Why is Gravik so anxious and so eager to do these sort of terrorist attacks? Because Gravik was here when Fury made all of these promises, but then of course Fury ends up falling short and he doesn't uphold those promises. So I just thought it did a really good job at showing a lot of backstory for Gravik, but it also shows that a lot of the Skrulls, not all the Skrulls are bad. They're not all here with evil intentions. So I think that was very important as well. And of course, then we end up going back to and then it comes back to modern day, and we see Gaia and Gravik leaving the terrorist attack that they have just done over in, I think it was Moscow, Russia, where they blew up three locations. And we end up learning in this episode that they actually ended up killing at least a minimal of over 2,000 people. And it also did a great, and it also, this episode also confirms that Kobe Smolder's character as Maria Hill is finally killed off. And you know what, that's understandable, because it's good to see that they were willing to kill someone like Maria Hill, who has been in the MCU pretty well, as far as I can tell, since at least the first Avengers, but I can't remember if she was in Iron Man 2 or not, the first Captain America. I can't quite remember, but I know for sure that she was in the first Avengers movie. So this is her. She's been in the MCU since 2012 at least, if not even earlier. So I'm not surprised that they might start killing killing off some of these original cast. I have no doubts in my mind. I would not even be surprised if even Nick Fury ends up dying eventually. When you look at the original Avengers, most of them are already out. We really only have Thor and Hulk left. I mean, Hawkeye is still here as well, and I have no doubts that Hawkeye will return for Secret Wars. But I do not suspect that any of our mainstream Avengers, any of our original Avengers from Phase 1, 2, or 3, I highly doubt any of them will make it past Secret Wars. I would be even surprised if even Doctor Strange makes it past there. It's hard to know with Benedict Cumberbatch because, he's such a top A-list actor, and he really has a career set with Marvel and with the MCU if he really wanted it. But you also have to look at the fact that, Cumberbatch is not getting any younger, and as good as he is and as awesome as he is as Doctor Strange, how much longer can he really portray this role? Now, I would think in today's age with stunt doubles and with all the with all the stunt doubles and CGI and special effects that they have the capabilities of doing and using at their fingertips, I feel like they could keep most of these actors for a very long time. The fact that they can even use de-aging technology with Nick Fury, just goes to show that realistically they probably could keep these characters around for a very long time, even these actors. But it's just whether or not would Benedict Cumberbatch even want to do that. But we're getting a little bit off track here. After we're talking about Maria Hill being killed, we sort of spiraled out of control here. But that's the fun thing about the podcast. We can speculate and go into these little sidetrack things. But anyways, back into modern day, when we see Maria Hill, for one last time dying here on the street, what I really liked about this scene is that once again it shows how amazing, but how much of a threat as well the Skrulls are, because Talos ends up, changing into different shapes, and he actually helps Nick Fury escape the situation by throwing him into the back of a van, by disguising himself as many different disguises. The same thing happens eventually when they're on a train. When you're on the train and, one of the train, one of the train security or whatever comes by, which is actually, I think, the very next scene. And I actually really enjoyed this scene. I've heard a couple of reviewers online say that they felt this scene was a little boring, a little long, and a little dragged out. But I actually thought that this scene was extremely important. Once again, defining the Skrulls, showing how powerful they are and how deceptive they can be, because Talos ends up changing shape and he becomes a female character and ends up telling the guard that Nick Fury is not here. And then as soon as he closed the door, he goes back to Ben Mendelsohn as a Skrull. So I really appreciated that they're not holding back from the Skrulls. They're really letting them change a lot. And I actually don't mind the special effects. I don't think that the special effects are bad. Yes, it is noticeable when they try to hold back the special effects a little bit. They do try to sort of hide the shape shifting and whatnot, but I can look past that because they are still doing it. Sure, sometimes the shots are blurred. Sure, sometimes it's just them walking behind something, but for the most part, I'm actually quite satisfied, and I do think the CGI, considering that this is a Disney Plus show, I do think the CGI looks actually pretty good. And, but that's just me. Like I said, maybe that's not for everybody. Maybe not everybody will look at this and be like, oh yeah, this is the greatest CGI, because it's certainly not the greatest, but you get what I'm saying. I don't think it's as bad as what some people say. But anyways, here on the train, Fury and Talos are, sat basically front on to each other, and they are just going at it. And one thing that I thought was very clever about the writing of this scene was that you can actually see both sides. I was able to totally 100% agree with Fury, but I was also able to 100% agree with Talos. Excuse me. And I think that's also something that the scene from 1997 did a really great job at as well, was defining the two positions. Fury's like, I promise I'm going to help you find a new home if you promise to help keep us safe and you don't hurt anybody, you follow the rules and you stay disguised, don't let anyone know you're here or who you are, and you uphold your promise and I will uphold my promise. And this is really what this argument comes down to. Really, essentially, if you look at the core of this conversation here on the train, essentially that's what it is. Talos is like, listen man, you told us 30 years ago you were going to help us find a new place and you didn't. And he said, not only did you not help us find a new place, but you actually disappeared. He said, you got blipped away, from Thanos when he snapped. And this is where we learned that Talos was involved with bringing 1 million Skrulls into the planet, which Fury like kind of loses his mind a little bit. And he's like, "Are you crazy? Like, how could you do this? You're really jeopardizing our world. You're bringing all these people here." And this is when Talos mentions an emperor, some Emperor Skrull, which I actually don't even remember from the comics. I'm sure there's somebody in the world there somewhere that recognizes that name or knows that comic storyline a little bit better than me. But for me, I just was not familiar with the Emperor that he named the Emperor of the Skrull. I know, I can sort of, when I think back to the emperors in any of the alien type stuff in Marvel, I always go back to the Kree. I can think of emperors in the Kree, but I can't quite put my finger on any emperors for the Skrulls. But they could be changing something up or a little bit just for the sake of the show. I'm not really 100% sure. I just simply can't remember the Skrulls having an emperor, especially not an evil one or a powerful one, because it seems like Talos is telling Fury about this emperor, but he's telling him, "Don't worry, I brought in 1 million Skrulls, but I didn't take anyone from that squadron or that group of people." But then on the other hand is like, well, where are those Skrulls? Where are they living? Where are they hiding out? And if you know about them, then why wouldn't they know about you, type thing? You know what I mean? So a part of me wonders if that could end up coming into the future of the MCU. I also was wondering as well, and just hear me out for a second. I know most people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but I actually wondered, what if in Secret Wars, rather than actually having them face off against Kang the Conqueror, because remember, the part 2 of that story is going to be called the Kang Dynasty. So I wondered, what if in part 1, Secret Wars was actually a continuation of Secret Invasion? Now, I know Secret Wars is a whole new comic all to itself. It's all about the multiverse. It's all about bringing in the different franchises, which we know Marvel is going to do. Marvel is bringing in the X-Men, or at least some of the X-Men from Fox. They've already brought in the Sonyverse and all the different iterations of Spider-Man. They are undoubtedly going to bring in Ben Affleck's, Daredevil. I'd be very surprised if Ben Affleck don't return as Daredevil. They already brought in the Defenders from the Netflix shows. So, there's no doubts in my mind that, Secret Wars is going to have everybody. I hope they even bring back Wesley Snipes for Blade and all that kind of crazy stuff. But a part of me wonders, what if, and literally just what if, amongst all this multiversal war, what if Secret Invasion was actually the Avengers having to fight the Skrulls as well? I just, we're already 2 episodes into this series, and I just can't see them being able to sum up the entire invasion with just 4 more episodes. So, and not only that, but I don't see how they would want to sort of tie up the Skrulls, just based on a 6-episode Disney Plus show. Like, I feel like they need to either give them like a full-length feature film with a really high budget, or at least higher than Disney Plus series, where we can get the cool CGI and we could have like sort of an Avengers. They don't have to have every single Avenger. They could have some lower, smaller Avengers. You could throw Miss Marvel in there. You could throw Spider-Man in there if you want, or not even. You could throw Daredevil in there now. Daredevil's already there. If you want to throw the Punisher in there, it's a great opportunity to put the Punisher in there, especially where how violent the Punisher is. It would be, more, they would probably not shy away from the violence if the Punisher was shooting at Skrulls as opposed to humans and all that kind of stuff. So if you get what I'm saying. So, a part of me wondered if Secret Wars would actually not tie in directly with Secret Invasion. I don't think they're going to go that way, but I do feel like after seeing only 2 episodes of this one, I do feel like this story needs to continue beyond this, and it needs to go maybe towards a movie or a film as opposed to another series, because I think you need to put the money in for this. You need to sort of have this story overflow into something else. They very well might do that too. We do have things like the Thunderbolts coming. Why not have the Thunderbolt? Thunderbolts are almost like Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, but maybe, a little less rated R, maybe a little more kid friendly, or at least at the very least more like a PG-12 or PG-13 or something like that. So this would be something good for the Thunderbolts to have to deal with, have the Thunderbolts come in and deal with the Skrulls. I don't see why they couldn't do that. They could throw the Midnight Suns in there if they wanted to. They could do like a special presentation. Either way, I do not think for a second that this story will end with this one series, and I don't even think that they can end it with this one series, especially given the fact that, in this scene with the train, Talos tells Fury that there's a million Skrulls. I mean, how can you sum that up in 4 more episodes? So is like, even if, Fury, takes out Gravik, which obviously Gravik is going to have to go away at some point, and there is going to have to be a battle, but it's just, there's no way Fury himself is going to be able to take him on. So I suspect that maybe Rhodey's will have to come in as War Machine, or, I do think there will be someone that makes appearance at the end of the show, just maybe not someone huge. It might not be like an Iron Man or a Captain America, but I do think somebody somewhere will show up, whether it's, the Winter Soldier, or it's like, I don't know, someone like Ironheart. I mean, Ironheart could really show up, or War Machine could show up, or both. Both of them could show up. It'd be cool if they got Shiri thrown in here somehow. So I don't really know like how they're going to end this, but I just don't feel for a second that this story can end at the end of these 4 episodes. Because even if you made a truce, say even if Fury did kill Gravik or beat Gravik somehow, and then, make a truce with the rest of the Skrulls, when you have that many Skrulls on the planet now, over 1 million, there's always going to be the chance that 1 or 2 of them will create a rebellion, and that rebellion will very likely be ongoing. There's always going to be someone that takes the place of the bad guy. There's always going to be a rebellion. Somebody somewhere is always going to want to sort of, well, why should we let them keep their planet? We already have a planet. Let's just take it over. So, I just don't really see how they can end this in 4 episodes. But anyways, we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, this conversation on the train was very heated. And like I said, they did a great job. Great performances, too, by the way, by Samuel Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn. Did a great job at portraying their characters here. And, I really liked that back and forth that they had. I didn't like how the argument ended. I didn't like the fact that Fury basically kicks Talos off the train. I thought that was a little outside of Fury's character, and even, especially with everything that the Skrull went through, everything that Talos has been through. I just didn't really feel like that was really appropriate, despite their differences. But then we get to the next scene when they're at the airport, and I thought this scene was really cool too, because we actually meet Maria Hill's mom, and of course they're returning the body, and they have the casket there, and they're having the funeral because Maria Hill was obviously killed by one of the Skrulls. Well, specifically Gravik, he actually kills her. I'm still not 100% convinced that she's dead. I did see online that I think I seen somewhere online that like Colby Smulders came out and confirms like, oh yeah, I'm really dead, and then it's like, she said that she knew a long time ago, like years and years ago, that eventually her character would die. But I mean, you could say that about them all. Eventually, all of them actors are going to outgrow the role. They'll either be recast or just simply have them retire or die off. So, I mean, all their stories are going to come to an end eventually. But it will be interesting to see with the multiverse. I mean, they can basically keep recycling these stories now. Like I said, with the multiverse, you can bring in different actors and just say, well, they come from a different universe. But anyways, and not only that, but Colby Smulders is credited for all 6 episodes. So even though technically she was not really in this episode, you did get a quick flash of her in the first part, where where she was lying on the ground bleeding out. And not only that, I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure she was in the trailer in scenes that we haven't seen as well. And I know it's not uncommon for Marvel to sort of distort the trailers a little bit and have them a little bit misleading. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she won't be in it no more. Maybe she really is dead and gone here. But this is Marvel. I won't believe it until the show's over, until we see the end of the series. Fury has died, 1 or 2 times now. So we'll have to wait and see. But either way, I thought this was a great scene. We got to, a great banter between Fury and her mom. And she was really, really upset, really sad. And I can't blame her. She probably blames Fury for a lot of this stuff and whatnot. And it's just, it's heartbreaking. So then then we see, we come to these like bunch of news clips and whatnot. And it shows that there is It says lead in the news article. It says that they have a suspect in custody, and it's the leader of Americans against Russia. So Russia is basically plotting. Basically, the Skrulls are sort of manipulating the media, which you learn later on. They're manipulating the media into believing that it was the Americans that did this attack, and and basically they're trying to pin it on America. And I guess the whole point of that is so that they can sort of cause like catastrophe in the world, like turn the humans against the humans, so to speak. One of the great war tactics is divide the house, right? Have the members of the house turn against the members of the house, and then once a house is divided and can't once it can't get along with itself, then the house is already fallen. And we can see that more than ever even in real life nowadays. You can see lots of people, so many countries now, even within their own countries, are divided rather than standing strong as one country. But so really the war tactic that the Skrulls are using is actually quite genius. And when you combine that with the abilities of the Skrulls, of them being able to shapeshift while taking over the memories, while taking certain positions in very powerful leader roles of the world, of the UN and of different political parties and different political powers, you could tell how serious this invasion is. And we actually sort of get a glimpse at that here right after we see that really cool scene between Maria's mother and Fury. The very next scene, then we see Gaia and Gravik. Gaia's driving Gravik to what I think they call it the Council of the Skrulls or something like that. And Gravik goes in. Gaia's not allowed in. She's not high enough level. She doesn't have enough authority. So she just simply brings Gravik there. But she's not allowed to actually enter into the room. But she is allowed into the building, if that makes sense. So Gravik goes in there and he basically pleads his case. And he basically tells everybody at the council, basically tells them all, listen, the time has come now. It's time for us to start taking over. And of course, when we see the council, we know that some of these council members are already in very high powers, in very high, powerful forms of authority. We see one there that's sort of in control of the media. I think one was there that was like some form of Congress or some form of authority with the United Nations. So you can tell that the Skrulls already have infiltrated a lot of very powerful places. So it's very believable that they can manipulate that terrorist attack. As we've seen on the news, they were blaming it on on America for that terrorist attack. But now we see in this scene here with the council that Gravik already has people in place in power. Well, I guess it's not really Gravik. I guess they've sort of done it on their own. I guess the Skrulls just sort of took over on their own. And in the council, they already have those powerful positions, so they can basically manipulate the media in whatever way they like. But one thing I thought was really cool here was that Gravik actually sort of uses the same lines that Fury used, and he's like, listen, you keep your word and I'll keep mine. He says, but the difference is that I won't fail, so to speak. And he's basically telling them that he wants to sort of start this rebellion revolution where he's just like, you know what, we don't need to find a new planet. We don't need to go anywhere. We have a planet right here at our fingertips, and there's no reason why we can't just take over and live here and rule here and be happy and all that kind of stuff. And you know what, I thought it was a really cool scene. I can see why a lot of people might be bored of this series because there's not really a huge amount of action in it. It is very much a political game. It's more like watching a chess game, so to speak. It's more of a strategic type thing, as opposed to being like Bronze. The strategies are more about making authoritarian moves as opposed to just going in and taking over a country with punches and kicks. Is less hands on and it's more influential. And I really like that. I really like political thrillers, and I really like seeing this one unfold. It's like a really cool, like a much deeper, in-depth version of like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but very differently. Obviously, we're dealing with Skrulls. We're not just dealing with like Hydra and whatnot, but we are dealing with Skrulls. But I still think that they should say that it was the Skrulls that sort of created Hydra. I think that would be pretty cool. Or at least, created or ran the modern day Hydra, because we know Hydra's been on the go forever. But it would be cool if they, showed the Skrulls were a part of that somehow. But anyways, Gravik pleads to the council, and for the most part, they all agree. There's only one that actually stands up and is like, yeah, I'm not having this. I don't agree with this, and I'm not going to go along with this. And that person just gets up and walks out. And I was expecting Gravik to have her, be followed or maybe even killed. And maybe she will be eventually. But for now, he just lets her go. She gets up and leaves. She says she's not having any part of it. And she actually calls Talos right away. And she tells Talos basically everything that's happening, everything that's going on, and how Gravik has pleaded his case to the council, and and he basically just wants to take over everything. So then, of course, now Talos has the news, so he kind of knows what's going on, and he's sort of filled in to everything, because, like I said, she was telling him, she sat in at the council meeting, so she tells him. Then we get the scene where Gravik goes back to like the headquarters or the camp or whatever it is, the headquarters of where all the rebellion scrolls are staying, and he gets applauded and cheered on and whatnot. And excuse me. And this is also where we finally see there's a scientist working here, and he has this massive machine that he's building. And this machine, I think, is going to be what turns him in, and maybe other people as well, into the Super Scroll. Now, when you look at the computer on the screen of like basically, if you remember earlier, I said that the Super Scrolls were based on they're based on the characters of, I think it was characters of the Fantastic Four. So it was Pyro. It's Pyro. Let me think. It's Pyro, Invisible Woman, Stretch, Mr. Fantastic, and then a couple others as well. But in this one, there is still going to be very similar powers, but it's done from different. In this one, they're going to take the abilities from Groot, from the Guardians of the Galaxy. So Groot has the ability to stretch. So he's basically taking the place of Mr. Fantastic. We're also going to be using Frost Beast. They're going to be using Frost Beast, which is basically means that they will have the ability to they'll have the ability to actually, I think, use some form of ice or something like that. Cole Odison, I think their name is basically like the Thing. And then the very last one that they have is going to be Extremis, and we know that Extremis allows them to breathe fire and whatnot. So they're the four characters, or the four types of abilities that these Super Skrull will have. So they're basically the same as the Fantastic Four, really. They just took the characters that have already been introduced in the MCU, and they're like, yeah, we're going to use these rather than actually using the Fantastic Four, because the Fantastic Four is not actually introduced yet and won't be introduced until probably Phase 6, roughly. But they will be introduced soon. They're just not here yet. Actually, I think that this could have been a cool way for them to actually... they could have actually used the Fantastic Four here, I think, just rather than showing the pictures. They could have just sort of had their DNA and just had their names there. I think that they could have... Marvel still could have sort of threw in a little Easter egg there, or they could have even used an Easter egg from the X-Men. They could have used Fox X-Men. They could have had Iceman. They could have had Pyro. They could have used... they could have just had some X-Men there. But that's okay. They still used characters that we were familiar with, and it was pretty. It's still cool. It was still a great way for Secret Invasion to tie in with the rest of the universe, with the Guardians of the Galaxy, with Thor. I think it was Thor: Love and Thunder, and Iron Man 3, and then of course the other one. I think it was Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, where we've seen Odison, or whatever his name is, Aldison, or whatever his name is, the guy that would technically be the Thing from Fantastic Four. But then, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes in the future. I don't know how much longer it's going to be before they become the Super Skrulls. I suspect it'll be either the next episode or maybe 4. I don't think that we'll have to wait right to the end. I think it'll happen a couple episodes before, but I could be wrong. Maybe they will wait until episode 5 or 6, but I think episode 4 most likely is when it will happen, but maybe it will happen in the next episode. Who knows? So then moving along again, sort of going back to that political game where we see a lot of politics going on. You get to see Colonel Rhodes, and Rhodey is here in front of, I believe this is, I can't remember if this is like the United Nations or if this is just some form of panel over in Russia, but I know that he's talking, or actually, it could be NATO, but anyways, he's talking to the UK, he's talking to France, and I think Italy is here as well. And they're basically accusing Nick Fury and sort of going along with Gravik and everything that Gravik was saying, basically going along with the fact that, that this was an American attack. And what you see here is that one of the people that are on this council, who I believe was the Prime Minister of the UK, is actually on Gravik's council, on the Council of the Skrulls. So you can once again see how Gravik has manipulation in very high places because of the fact that the Skrulls have already infiltrated certain members of the High Authority. So I thought that scene was really good. And I also think that scene was very important, once again showing how much and how deep into our planet and into the Earth the Skrulls have already infiltrated. So then we go to another pretty cool back and forth between Rhodey and Fury. This scene I thought was a little bit out of character for Rhodes, so I'm not really 100% sure what's going on here. It is possible that Rhodey is actually... I don't know, because I haven't seen anything past this episode, but I do feel that maybe Rhodey might actually already be a Skrull. A part of me wondered if he's not already infiltrated. I would also be curious to know if any of the Avengers have already been infiltrated. I know they wouldn't show that right here, maybe, but, who knows? Maybe, the whole... we don't really know if the fact that, we already have a million Skrulls here, and not only that, but they do talk about the Avengers in this episode as well. I believe somebody actually says something like that to Gravik, like what happens if the Avengers come back or something like that, and Gravik was like, I could be wrong, but I think he said something along the lines, he's like, well, do you think I haven't already thought about that? Or something like that. So that, once again, that makes me wonder if he don't already have contingencies, in place for if something like the Avengers did return. I wonder if he already has his own team of Skrulls and whatnot in place to be able to reshape and reform and become the Avengers, or does he already have Skrulls in place that look like the Avengers? They might not have their memories if they haven't actually kidnapped them, but they could very well look like them. So I'd be curious to see that as well. So then we come to a really brutal scene. At least I thought it was very brutal. And this is when we see Olivia Colman's Sonya. She portrays the character Sonya Falsworth, and I believe she's basically like the boss, or sort of the one that was kind of overseeing Fury, but not really. Oh, and that's something else too, just to go back for a second with that scene between Rhodey and Fury. Rhodey actually fires Nick Fury there, and he tells him basically, you no longer have a say in this fight, you're no longer in it. And then, but something really cool I thought that Fury says to him, which is also very suitable for Fury's character. Fury looks at him, he's like, listen, even when I'm out, I'm in. So I really thought that was cool, because that really does suit, excuse me. That really does suit Fury's character, so I just thought it's just really funny seeing him say that to Rhodey. But like I said, it was very much outside of Rhodey's character as well, so, outside of his characteristics, outside of, I don't think that that's something he would really say, but I could be wrong, maybe he would, but either way, I thought it was really a really funny banter back and forth between the two. But now we go back to Sonya Falsworth's character, who's portrayed by Olivia Colman. And one thing that I thought was very important about this scene was the fact that it shows how far humans are willing to go as well to protect the planet. Because we've sort of already seen in the first and even most of this episode, we see how far the Skrulls are willing to go, how far Gravik is willing to go, with the 2-3 terrorist attacks, bombs, blowing up everything over in Russia. Well, in this one, we get to see how far the humans are willing to go. And also shows really how intelligent Sonya is as well, because as soon as she goes into this room, she actually asks, she asks the guys before going in, where's the exit, where's the exit hatch, or the safety exit hatch, or the tunnel, how do you escape, basically, and they show her. But she asks for this because she knows that while this interrogation is going on, she knows that Gravik is going to come and potentially want to harm her in some way, shape, or form, or he's going to show up here, and so that obviously is going to become very problematic. So Yeah, I just thought it was really clever and really smart for her character, because I do feel like that's something that she would say, and that's something that she would, really do, because she'd want to cover all of her own bases as well. She wants to know how can she get out fast, because she knows she hasn't got much time. The moment this interrogation starts, she knows that you can pretty well start the timer, because Gravik and the other rebellion scrolls are going to be on their way. So she goes in. She asks, where are where's the escape hatch, and they show her that it's in the floor. And like I said, this this shows how far humans are willing to go, not just how far the scrolls are willing to go to take over the planet, but just how far humans are willing to go to save the planet. And she has this some form of cocktail. I don't even really know what it is, but whatever it is, she has it, and it causes severe pain and trauma and anxiety for the scroll, and she injects it into the scroll, and it looks extremely painful. So kudos to both of the actors, Coleman and the actor that portrayed that scroll, because they both did a phenomenal job of acting that out, because she was great and very intimidating, but also very serious. She'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. And of course, the person being interrogated did a great job and made it very believable that he really was there being interrogated. So you could really feel the pain and really feel the emotion. And I also have to say kudos to Disney as well, because this was actually a very brutal and violent scene. It was actually gory, because Sonya actually cuts the finger off of this person, and when she cuts the finger off this scroll, it's actually when he's a human. He's not an alien when she does it. He's actually a human. Now, don't get me wrong, as soon as she picks up the finger, it does turn into the green scroll finger. But still, at the time when she makes the incision and actually cuts off the finger, they actually show her cut off the finger, and it is a human hand. And it does have like red blood and everything as well. So, kudos to Disney Plus for actually having this very bloody, gory scene in their series. So, you can sort of see the direction that the MCU is heading. You can see that Disney is willing to do these more darker, grittier, more gory, violent horror type shows now, which is a good thing, because we need that type of thing for characters that are coming in the future, like Blade. We have Blade coming. We have Deadpool coming. We have the X-Men coming. I just can't imagine a Wolverine that, doesn't have blood and stuff in there. I just can't imagine, Wolverine not, cutting through a bunch of people. So, it'll be interesting to see. Now, obviously, Marvel is not going to go full-blown rated R. Obviously, every single project is not going to be rated R. Spider-Man is still going to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and all that stuff. But I do think that there are some characters that, you just have to have rated R stuff, like, maybe the Punisher, Blade. It's too bad, honestly. I wish Daredevil would even be a rated R, but it's very unlikely that Marvel will keep Daredevil the same way that Netflix had him. But either way, I think that this show does open the door of possibilities. We do get to see potentially how far is Disney willing to go with the heroes. And in this one, in this episode, we see someone get their finger cut off. So I think that's a pretty good step forward in terms of the darker, grittier, more horror elements of the MCU. But anyways, she interrogates this person and actually tortures the scroll, and basically ends up getting the information that she wants. And all the while she's doing this, of course, Gravik obviously comes. And I thought that was a really cool scene. I also really liked how the scene was shot when Gravik and his couple of rebel scrolls actually infiltrated the building and shot the place up. I really appreciated how they actually filmed that scene. It looked really. It looked actually pretty cool. There was one scene where they had it like first person. You could actually see the gun from the perspective of Gravik or whichever soldier it was. So I thought that was pretty cool. I really like the writing of the show, whether you like the show or hate it. I think that the conversations in the show are really are done really well, honestly. I think they're very realistic, within this type of environment, within this world. But anyways, she's interrogating the scroll while Gravik and and the other scroll and their other rebellion scroll is infiltrating. And of course, it gets to the point, obviously, where she has to use the escape hatch, which I did think was a little bit unrealistic. I did think that it was a little bit silly that she left the door open. But then again, from the side of Gravik, I don't think Gravik was too concerned about that anyways. And I think that you can explain that or chalk that up in a couple different ways. I think one way and one reason why Gravik was not concerned about her was because I feel like, especially with how organized these rebel scrolls are, I think that they're so organized that he would have known who she was, and he would know that she knows who he is. So a part of me thinks that maybe he would have let her go anyways, just for the sake of not causing, the government to basically infiltrate his place, because it's undeniable that somebody somewhere knows where the scrolls are staying. There's some government agency somewhere that knows that Gravik and the rebel squirrels are staying in that location. So that's sort of how I chalked it up. I just chalked it up in the sense that the reason why Gravik didn't chase her or follow her in the tunnel is because Gravik very likely knew who she was and probably thought that, at least for now, she's too high of a profile to take out. And that's sort of what I chalked it up to, because it was pretty silly and unrealistic, how she jumped down into the escape hatch and didn't close the hatch behind her. She left it open, and then Gravik comes in but don't follow her. So I just sort of chalked it up to both of them being extremely smart. They had to send, they had to send Sonya in to do the interrogation because of how intelligent she was. But at the same time, Gravik is also very intelligent, and so he knew that he couldn't kill her, at least not as of right now, because she's just too high of a profile of a character in the government, and he just didn't want to draw that kind of attention to the scrolls. And that's sort of how I chalked it up. Now, I could be totally wrong. Maybe it was just a mishap or an overlook by Marvel. Maybe it was just sloppy writing, but I like to think of it in that sense, that Gravik was more intelligent and smart enough to know when to attack, where to attack, and when to, kind of like the old sign, know when to hold them and know when to fold them. In this case, he knew that he had to fold. And he wasn't, and not only that, but he wasn't going in there to kill her. He was going in here to rescue this scroll because he was concerned about what the information that they would get from the scroll. So once again, and then of course in the next scene, once he does rescue that rebel scroll, or that scroll member, I think this scene was very important as well, because Gaia is in this scene and she's driving Gravik and the other rebels, and they actually take that scroll out to sort of the middle of nowhere, and they actually kill the scroll after they save him. And this is a really important scene for a number of reasons. One, it shows how far Gravik is willing to go. Not only is he willing to hurt humanity and destroy parts of the earth and cause like this huge sort of civil war in different countries, to the point where maybe it could actually escalate into like a world war, but it also shows how far he's willing to go against his own. He's willing to kill Skrulls. He's willing to kill his own people, and I think that could be used and will be used, I think, towards the finale, in which, when it comes time for, the main showdown, I guess you could say, when it comes to, when it comes down to Nick Fury having to actually save the planet, I do think that this is going to be a big reason why he's able to sort of stop the Skrulls, at least temporarily, even if they don't truly get rid of the Skrulls completely in this series. Just for the sake of sort of having a truce and a temporary peace, I think that they'll chalk it up to, they'll use that to chalk up the sort of the peace agreement between humanity and the Skrulls. I think they'll say, well, why are you following Gravik when Gravik is so willing to kill his own? And then Gaia will be there, and she'll be a witness, and she's almost like his right-hand man. Not quite as far as being the right-hand man, but she's probably more like, the third-hand man or fourth-hand man. And I think that she'll be a witness and say that, she witnessed Gravik killing Skrulls. So I do think that all that stuff will come into play again in the future, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And I think, and then I think that's, for the most part, some of the more important parts of the scenes. And the only real big last scene, which we might spend a few minutes talking about, is the very final scenes of the episode, which is when it goes back to Nick Fury. And it shows Fury going to a warehouse, and he ends up finding this vehicle. And he ends up taking this vehicle. I would assume this is a vehicle that he had placed there, so it's probably untraceable, untrackable. It's probably just like a civilian vehicle that he found, or like had ready to go. And he goes and he drives, and he ends up coming to a house. And before he goes into the house, it shows us what's going on inside the house, and it shows a Skrull alien, which appears to be female, and she's cutting up some vegetables, or a cucumber or something like that, or a zucchini. She's cutting up some kind of vegetable or fruit there on the counter, but I think it's like a cucumber. And then it shows Fury come in, but when he comes in, she no longer looks like a Skrull. She now looks like a human. And so when Fury goes in there, she looks at him and she basically says, "Aren't you forgetting something?" And of course, that him forgetting something is that he's forgetting to put the ring onto his finger, which symbolizes the fact and shows the fact and shows us, the audience, that Fury is actually married to this woman. Now, whether or not he knows she's a Skrull, that's something different altogether. But what we do know is that they are married. So there's a few possibilities here of what could be going on. So either A, this really is Fury, and he really is truly married to her. So if this actually is Fury, then this breaks it down to two more possibilities. So one possibility is that this is Fury, and he's married to her, and he does not know that she's a Skrull. The second possibility is that this is Fury, that this really is Fury, and he is married to her, and he does know that she's a Skrull. Now that do sort of make sense probably more than the first one, and the reason for that is because of how much time Fury spent up on that spaceship, which I believe they called Sword, or the headquarters for Sword, which he went up on to basically during the events of Captain Marvel. In fact, Talos even says it when he comes down to Earth. He said, "You spent so much time on that spaceship." In the first episode, Maria Hill got mad at him. She was like, "You spent all that time up on the spaceship." So that is a really strong possibility. It is possible that Nick Fury is actually married to a Skrull and knows that she's a Skrull, and that could be why he spent so much time up there. But there is another possibility as well, and the other possibility is that that this is not really Nick Fury, and this is actually a Skrull, and these are two Skrulls in disguise, and we haven't actually seen the real Nick Fury yet. So it's hard to know yet what's going on here. I'm not really 100% sure what's going on here. But those, obviously, they are the only possibilities that it can be. There's really no other possibility that it can be. So either A, it is Nick Fury and he's really married to her and he doesn't know that she's a Skrull, or it is Nick Fury and he really is married to her, but he does know she's a Skrull, or it's not Nick Fury and it's actually just two Skrulls that are married together. And I'm not really 100% sure which one I'm leaning towards yet, because I've been saying for a while now that I believed that maybe Fury was a Skrull, or he will become a Skrull, or what I mean by that is that a Skrull would eventually take him over. But if he is a Skrull, then the question is which one, and I don't think that it would be Gravik. I mean, it's possible, maybe it could be Gravik, but I don't feel like it would be Gravik. But one reason why I think the possibility is that it's Gravik is given the fact that Gravik has already transformed into Fury in the first episode when he shot Maria Hill. So that is actually a possibility. It is possible that this is Gravik, but I don't think so. It's possible, but I don't think so. Another possibility is that this could actually be Talos, and it is possible that Talos just simply remarried. So this could be Talos, and he just ended up remarrying, after losing his first wife. And also, not only did he lose his first wife, but he also lost his daughter, Gaia. Gaia has not been around. So, that is a possibility as well. Maybe this is Talos and he remarried. And for the time being, he's taking over Fury's body. Who knows why? Maybe he's protecting Fury. I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to turn out that this is Talos, but I'm just saying that it's a possibility. It could be Talos, but I don't think it's Talos. It could be Gravik, but I don't think it's Gravik. But a part of me still thinks that it's a possibility that this is not Fury. But if it is Fury, then if it turns out that it is Fury, then I think that he would know that she's a Skrull, because simply of how much time he spent up in the spaceship. And not only that, but he really connected with the Skrulls. He really connected with Talos. Then again, now that I'm thinking about it, it could be that he's married to her, does not know that she's a Skrull, but Talos does. Now, that would be interesting if it turns out that Talos really is the villain of the whole story. It would be crazy if it turns out that Gravik was actually Talos' son. That would be a pretty cool flip-flop. I would not be surprised to see that. And we could learn, and that would also explain why Gaia would be hanging out with him. So maybe it's a possibility that Gaia and Gravik are actually brother and sister. I think that would be pretty interesting. If that's the case, then maybe this woman here is Gravik's mother. I'm not 100% sure, really. Or maybe this is a Skrull that married the real Fury for the sake of trying to manipulate him into giving them the world or the Earth or something. So I'm not really 100% sure how it's going to work. But really, at the end of the day, there's only three possibilities. It is Fury. He's married to someone, but don't know they're a Skrull. It is Fury. He's married to someone, and he does know they're a Skrull. Or, C is not Fury, and it's just two Skrulls married together. I'm still more leaning towards that. But all three of those possibilities are really high probabilities. And another reason why I haven't really been convinced that we've actually been following Fury is the fact of how the story opens. The very first episode began with us seeing a light with Fury coming down from the light, and then sort of, it showed Fury coming down, almost like, he's leaving a spaceship or something, and he's coming out of the light, and that's where the story picks up. And so we can only assume that he was coming down from Sword. But I think that even that entrance of him coming down from what looks like a spaceship, even that could sort of be symbolic, and Marvel's way of telling us it looks like Fury, but it's not Fury. And you're watching a show that's called Secret Invasion, and that's what these Skrulls specialize in. They specialize in becoming humans, and not only looking like humans, but actually becoming humans in the sense where they actually remember the memories and everything. So, there's a lot going on here that I'm not 100% sure that we, I'm not really 100% sure, but that's one thing that this show does a really good job at. It does a really good job at making you wonder, is this really Fury? Is this really Maria Hill? Was that really Rhodey? But, and I think that's the whole point of Secret Invasion. It's supposed to make you feel uneasy. It's supposed to make you ask those questions, because we never really truly know who's who or who's what, because the Skrulls just have that ability where, they're able to make themselves look like, other people. And now, like I said, in this episode, they actually acquire the memories as well. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how it plays out. I'm not 100% sure if there's an after credit scene or not. I don't think there was. But all in all, I really liked this episode. I thought it was very creative. Like I said, I thought they did a great job at making us wonder and keep on wondering. And I'm still not 100% sure of how the story is going to go with Fury, but I am very excited to see how see next week's episode. I think it's going to be a really good episode. And all in all, I've been absolutely loving Secret Invasion so far. I think for me, this is probably, it's too early for me to really give this a good rating or a bad rating, because we've only seen 2 episodes. But I do think that this is probably my second favorite MCU. No, maybe not my second, but probably as of right now, just judging it on the first 2 episodes, I would say this is probably my third favorite Disney Plus series so far. WandaVision definitely in first place. And I also really liked Loki. I thought Loki was done really well. And then I'd probably say Secret Invasion. I think this one... Oh, no, actually, no, I forgot about Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel would definitely be... Actually, Miss Marvel would probably be... I'd say Miss Marvel would be my second favorite. I'd say Miss Marvel would be my most favorite, then WandaVision, then Loki, and then maybe Secret Invasion. I might actually like this one the same amount as Loki, but like I said, it's too early for me to give it that kind of judgment yet, because we just haven't seen enough about it yet. But all in all, I am absolutely loving the series, and I can't wait to see next week's episode. Can't wait to see Fury's story and how it's going to end. Very excited to see if Maria Hill is actually dead. I'm not convinced that she is, but maybe she is. Who knows? But either way, I'm very excited. Very excited to see Gaia and Gravik and where their stories go. I can't wait to see the Super Skrull, especially once they get their abilities and all that cool stuff. And all in all, I'm having a blast with this series. And I do think that Marvel is up in their game again. I think they're becoming very interesting again. And I do think that... they're doing a really good job with Secret Invasion. Like I said, folks, I was very skeptical about how could they even do Secret Invasion without the Avengers. It's such an Avengers-level threat. But now, after seeing the first 2 episodes, and plus the fact that they do mention the Avengers, I can see now how they're how they're telling the story, and you can sort of see where they're heading with the story as well. But I think what this series does the best is it really makes you wonder, is who is who, and ultimately that's what Secret Invasion is always keeping you wondering in the back of your mind, who is who. And honestly, I gotta give credit when credit's due. I think Marvel's killing it with Secret Invasions, especially considering it's relying on pretty well no big Avengers, no big characters really other than Nick. And I think they're doing a really, really, really stand-up job. And I honestly, like I said, I just can't wait to see the next episode. So with that being said, folks, that is our after show, or our podcast, I guess, of episode 2 of Secret Invasion, which was called Promises. Like I said, cannot wait to see episode 3. Hope you folks are enjoying it as much as I am. I'm absolutely loving it, especially after sort of seeing a disappointing Flash. Like I said, I really enjoyed Flash the first time, but I actually liked it a lot less the second time. once I actually started to sort of let the movie marinate and actually think about the things that happen, think about the scenes, the writing, and all that stuff, and I started to see the flaws a lot more in the Flash. But I honestly, I'm really enjoying Secret Invasion. The Secret Invasion is still getting, I think, is still getting a fair amount of hate online. I think there's still a lot of people that are just not tuning in. I think I read somewhere today that like Secret Invasion was like one of the lowest, viewing had some of the lowest viewings of all Disney Plus series, and that's understandable. A lot of people are just sort of getting tired of seeing bad comic book stuff. And let's be honest, Marvel's Phase 4 and 5, especially Disney Plus, has not really been their strong suit. Me, I've loved them all, honestly. Even their bad stuff, I've really enjoyed. Like, I still really loved Ant-Man, Quantumania, just because I'm a comic book fan. I'm such a comic book, fan that I love all the comic book stuff. So even a bad comic book movie, I enjoy. But I've been loving Secret Invasion. I actually do think that this is one of the best things we've seen in a while. I think that this is obviously not quite as good as Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but I would say it's on par or even maybe better than Ant-Man Quantumania. So I have a lot of high hopes with Marvel now, and I know they're reevaluating everything behind the scenes, so it'll be interesting to see how everything goes moving forward. I mean, we have some massive bangers coming. We got Deadpool 3, which is going to have Wolverine. I mean, that's crazy. We got we got Miles Morales Across the Spider-Verse, which just came out, which basically canonized that into the MCU and also into the Sonyverse. So, we got lots of cool big projects coming. We got Kraven the Hunter coming. That looks like it's going to be insane. Can't wait to see that one and all that good stuff. And all in all, I think we're going to have some great superhero movies. We got Blue Beetle coming in August. Can't wait for that one as well. So a lot of really cool stuff coming and all that good stuff. But anyways, folks, that's my spoiler talk and our open discussion, and I guess us rambling on a little bit for episode 2 of Secret Invasion Promises. Let me know down below if you've seen this episode, and if you liked it, tell me why or why not. If you watch this on the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button, and if you just listened in on the podcast, then follow along if you like, and until the next episode, take care.